Well, Fine Gael giving the two fingers to the farmers of Ireland was not on my bingo card this weekend. Hi there, welcome back to the Politics Podcast. Yes, Fine Gael have given the two fingers to the farmers of Ireland. We know that they peed off the farm contractors last week. There wasn't many farmers among them, as I gathered. They were mainly farm contractors, truckers, hauliers, bus drivers and taxi men. But anyway, they peed off. The government peed them off rightly. And we all know how that ended with the riot squad and with pepper spray and the lot. And threats of their licence being taken off them and their insurance being taken off them. But that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. They went one step further this weekend. And Leo Varadkar, our ex-Taoiseach, ex-leader of Fine Gael, was on Matt Cooper's podcast. And he said that basically the farmers of Ireland are a liability, that the city folk pay for the farmers to live, and that basically the farmers of Ireland put no food on the table, that we have mainly imported food. But I'm going to play you this clip. Maybe you saw it. It was reported this time on RTE. It was on The Week in Politics. But I'm going to play it for you guys anyway, just in case, as I know the majority of you probably don't sit down and watch RTE. So let's play that now. It's unbelievable. Sorry.
And back to our earlier point, I think we have a very responsible, accurate media in this country that we should be very grateful for on weeks like this when we compare again back to the United States.
Okay, but let's talk a bit more about this rural-urban divide. And it is interesting. I think there is this perception that of depopulation of rural Ireland, which actually isn't quite accurate when you look at the figures. Then there's a perception perhaps that all rural Ireland is agriculture-based, which again isn't necessarily the case. If you look at the proportion of people who are working in agriculture and in farming as part of the overall population, you start having to wonder, are they getting a disproportionate influence over political decisions? Because you mentioned there, Anya, about, the protests with the Board Bia situation, but I suppose even more significant, a nitrates directive was put in place for, I think it's only about 7,000 farmers who actually benefit from that. But a lot of political capital is used up in the European Union in getting that. You also have, but far more significant, Ireland would benefit enormously from the Mercosur deal, and yet we had the government voting against it because it had promised that in the programme for government, again, to keep rural TDs happy. So could it be that we actually, maybe for historical reasons, are maybe giving too much power to the farmers?
I think that's actually playing out at the moment. If you look at most of Ireland's history, what was good for farmers and the wider agricultural industry was what was good for Ireland. So you go back to the land reform movement before independence. What was good for Ireland was crucially tied up with what was good for farmers, tenant farmers being able to buy their own land. Even when we joined the European Union, the huge benefits there were for agriculture. And I think what we've seen happen in the last 10 or 20 years, and it's not really been commented on or written on much, is we're now in a space where things are actually starting to go the other way, is that what's in the interests of farmers in the agriculture industry is by and large not in the interests of Ireland as a nation. And that's starting to play out, and farmers and people in that sector don't quite realise that yet. They still see themselves as the people who bring money and jobs into Ireland, where actually a lot of the time they bring costs on Ireland.
Yeah, and they also argue that we're the people who are feeding Ireland, and yet ironically...
Which is also not true.
Yeah, 80% of the food that we consume is actually imported. So that means that if you don't have the hauliers bringing the food in, yes, then we suddenly have a problem. Irish farmers cannot feed the country.
And it's actually worse than that. We now have so many cattle in Ireland that we can't grow enough grass to feed them. So we bring in grain from South America, from Mercosur countries to feed the cattle, and we bring in oil-based fertilizers from other parts of the world.
And that then
pollutes our rivers, and then we all pay the bill.
So guys, unbelievable stuff. He's saying that what used to be good for Ireland what used to be good for the farmers was good for Ireland. In other words, there were so many farming families that Ireland basically was a farming nation. That has stopped now. There are very small number of farming families left who do it on a full-time basis. But he is saying that they are, those farming families are a liability, and that the people who live in the urban settings are propping them up. It's unbelievable. And then he says that 80% of our food is imported. Nobody asked for imported food. Nobody asked for mass immigration. He has he says there about bringing the grass seed in and the fertilizer, importing it in. He's saying that's a tut-tut, but it's okay to have mass immigration. This man and this party are unbelievable. And I am sure Fine Gael TDs and councillors' phones have been hopping this weekend after that piece. An insult to farmers, an insult to farming families. Ireland would be nothing without farmers. Nothing. Your coffee and tea in the morning would be nothing without the milk that the farmers of Ireland produce, the beautiful cows eating the beautiful green grass. It would be nothing without them. And for him to come out now and use the most divisive language, basically raising city folk and putting rural families down there, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And I am sure Leo Varadkar's ears are burning with all the talk at the dinner table and the breakfast tables of every single family in rural Ireland. But this is where it is all going, guys. This is where joining the EU, you see how they did it? They need the farmers all along. They needed the farmers all along for votes, for joining the EU, for making it attractive for farmers. In fact, farmers bring in, I don't know how much billions in exports. The Irish food that's exported, I don't know the figure, but it's billions. And Leo Varadkar has the audacity to go on and on about bills and who's paying the bills, he says. Who's paying the bills? What about the bill for the IPAS accommodation service? For 2025 alone, that's last year alone, it has cost 2.1 billion euro for the IPAS system that we know of. We know we get stories now and again where we're shocked, like the 2.2 million on taxis ferrying these people around. But Micheál Martin, our current Taoiseach, has told us that over 80% of these people are just economic migrants, that their claim fails anyway. So we are spending 2.1 billion last year alone on 81% economic migrants who are not asylum seekers, who are not refugees in the sense that we know it. And Leo Varadkar has the audacity to say who's paying the bills, the farmers' bills. It's unbelievable, and I feel very, very sorry for the farmers, because the farmers traditionally are Fianna Fáil voters, some Fine Gael voters, but when the farmers get peed off with the Fianna Fáilers in the past, they had Fine Gael to rely on. Now Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are in bed with each other, so there's nowhere for the poor farmer to turn. And I feel extremely sorry. And they are starting to realise what the EU project was all about. As Micheál Martin said, he wants nothing to do with the backward-looking idea of sovereignty. And that's what the EU project was all about. It turns out it was to crush the sovereignty of Ireland, to crush our very nature, the farming blood, the farming DNA of this land, the EU project wants to crush. And it's clear, because he has just said that now. Now we don't need you anymore. We've got what we wanted now, farmers. Pipe down, we don't need you. It's unbelievable. This from the same man who has been continuously race baiting, bringing race into arguments in this country where we never had to talk about race before. And I'll give you a little example of that now. In the Dáil, some number of years ago, actually, and you wouldn't have seen this on RTE, but I'll play this for you. Just listen to what he says about the civil service in Ireland. Listen carefully.
One thing I strongly agree with the Deputy on is the need to set a target to have a number of people from ethnic minorities in areas of the public service. We have a health service that's very diverse, although less so as you go up towards the senior positions, not so much in the Gardaí, not so much in the Defence Forces, not so much in the education sector, as the Deputy mentioned, not at all in the civil service, which is very white, including the Department of Equality, for example, and that actually needs to change. So we need to have, I think, a target for people who come from ethnic minority backgrounds, but also dedicated recruitment campaigns to encourage people, because we do need a generation of young people growing up in Ireland who are people of colour to see black and brown school principals, judges, Keen Corla perhaps in the future. Who knows? Visibility and opportunity is really important.
Okay, do you hear that? The civil service in Ireland is too white. We need black and brown school principals, guards, the lot. He stood in our Dáil years ago saying that, and RT didn't tell us. We have to find those clips on X. The civil service in Ireland is too white. And then they would turn around and blame everyone under the sun for being divisive, using divisive language when they are bringing divisive language into the Dáil. It is unbelievable. And now he is, like I said, he has just peed off the farmers. Last week they peed off the hauliers, the truckers, the bus drivers, the farming contractors, and the taxi men, and the ordinary person like me who puts diesel in my car. With our 10-cent back, we got a reduction. Now they're saying that prices are going to jump. Electricity prices are going to jump next week, and food prices. And now he goes and pees off the farmers. And our president is no good at all to the ordinary person. She still has not made a statement in support of ordinary people who are struggling to pay their bills with high fuel costs. She still has not come out in support or made a statement about last week's protests, about the riot squad and about the pepper spray. She said nothing, but because she was too busy packing her bags, heading to Barcelona in Spain to meet an array of globalists, left-wing globalists, pro-open borders, absolutely pro-mass immigration, open borders, like Alex Soros, who's the son of George Soros. He was there. I think he organised it. That's where our president thought it was correct to go at the weekend. And she still didn't make a statement as she went out the door in her chauffeured car, costing us how much? This is what we are dealing with, guys. Unbelievable stuff. And I wanted to bring you that clip. I know it was reported on RTE, but I wanted to bring you my take on it. Because the people that were on, the TDs that were on, and the minister, I think Minister Canny was on The Week in Politics, and Anya Kerr, the presenter, asked them about this clip. Asked them, what, are you really insulting farmers like this? And they just, I advise you to find it on RTE Player and replay just that section, because they didn't condemn these words. They did not condemn these words. So that's where we are, guys. And like I said, I feel sorry for the farming families. Yes, they rely on EU subsidies, but they bring everything to Ireland. Ireland would be nothing without the farmers. Nothing. Look up postcards of Ireland. It'll be a farmer on it with his straw hanging out of his mouth and his little flat cap on, probably with a donkey. But that's before we joined the EU. That's where we are, guys. Not a good position on a Monday morning to wake up to. And that's all I'm going to bring you this morning. As always, share the info in this video, like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thank you to all the subscribers already to the channel. And I will see you on the next one, guys. God only knows what news I can bring you on the next one, but you can be sure it will be very, very interesting. Thanks, guys. See you on the next one. Take care.